Good morning to all my friends and family, and welcome to this episode of all that I've learned from Tony Robbins over the years. And today I come to you from beautiful Bondi Beach, and I'm going to do the walk between Bondi and Tamarama and go through and share with you the beautiful sculptures by the sea. It's early morning on this Sunday morning. It's not going to be a magnificent sunrise, unfortunately, because there's a lot of cloud or mist on the horizon. But it's not going to stop us from enjoying ourselves. And what I'll do is we'll do a walk and talk. And at the same time, what I'll do is I'll talk about a topic that Tony Robbins raised back in 94, 95 when I did UPW. Didn't touch on it as much in 2023, but it is something that is really important for all of us to consider, to think about. And the topic that I'm going to discuss is called transformational vocabulary, transformational language. And what it's all about is it's about the words that we use to describe what's going on in and around our world. So Tony Robbins says that how you communicate to yourself and how you communicate to others is really important. And although the English language has almost 1 million words that you can use, most people only have a vocabulary of 3,000 to 5,000 or 6,000 words that they use. And more interestingly, most people have a habitual vocabulary of about a couple of hundred words that they use throughout their day to describe their world, describe their experiences, and rely on that to communicate to themselves and to communicate to others around them. So the language that we choose to use can influence significantly the experience that we're having. Just like this artwork here that we've got down here at Bondi, it's an expression. And Tony Robbins also says that we communicate for one of two reasons: as an act of love or a cry for help. So when we do communicate, the words that we use are so important, because that becomes our experience becomes our reality. So what can we learn from it? There's a lot that we can take from it. Let's examine it step by step and see where we can go with this. So language is a way of thought. I'm very fortunate to be able to speak 2 languages. I've got my English language and my Greek language. And what I've learnt over the years is that depending on which language you're using to communicate to yourself and others, will determine your thought patterns as well, because the way you think or the language you use will determine and dictate also the way that you think. As interesting as it may be, when we use a language to describe something or to express something, it's also an expression of the thoughts that we have, the thought patterns that we employ. And that's why certain cultures are more comfortable with each other, because it's the language they use, but it's also the thought pattern, the thoughts that they use to come up with that language. I'm just trying to think of an example to make this a little bit more easy to talk about. But Anthony Robbins, back in 94 and 95, did an exercise with the audience where he got the audience to break up into groups of, I think, 10 people in each group. And he said to the groups, what he wants everybody to do is to pick a topic, pick a subject, and he gave us a few to choose from. And I remember distinctly that two of the topics were sex and love. And he said that he wanted people to pick a topic, and once they picked the topic, to sit in a group, have a piece of paper, a pen, and to write down 10 things. 10 things that help them understand a particular topic. So what we had to do basically is to use 10 words to describe one of those two items. So we sat down in a group, and the question was, what does love mean to you? If you were to describe love to somebody else using 10 words, or one of 10 words, what words would you use to help describe love, or to describe sex, for example? And each person would write down the words that they use to help describe that particular feeling. And at the end of the exercise, he would get the whole audience, or the whole group within the audience, to sit down and then do a checklist. Go around the group and ask a simple question. How many people had a similar sort of word to describe a certain thing? And when everybody was done, and everybody had completed their exercise, he went around the room and he said, how many people said a word and had the rest of the team check off that same word on their list? And nobody put their hand up. Then he said, well, how many people have 8 people, 7 people, 6 people? And he went round the audience, and what he found was that hardly anyone had more than maybe 1 or 2 words, which means that people use different words to describe different things. So we're living in the Tower of Babel, given that what I use or what I describe as my experience can be very, very different to what somebody else uses to describe their experience, which gives us a massive insight. And the massive insight is that we're all talking at cross purposes. We're all talking a different language, even though we are talking, or we think we're talking, the same language. When it comes to describing things to each other, it's all very, very different. And we need to realise that not everybody uses the same words, not everybody creates the same word pictures to describe and to express their feelings, which brings a problem. And that problem is that when it comes to communication, we're sloppy. We're sloppy because we don't accurately use the right words to describe what we're seeing, what we're feeling, not only to ourselves, but also to others. And Anthony Robbins also goes on to say that the quality of someone's life is a direct reflection of the quality of their vocabulary, their depth, their richness of their vocabulary. Because the more accurate you are in describing something to yourself, the more accurate you're going to be in describing things to other people. And the more words you have to describe something, then chances are you're going to be able to pick the right word to describe the particular nuance that you're experiencing. The indigenous people of I think the Inuit people, and Anthony Robbins was suggesting had 20 or 30 words to describe ice, whereas most Australians or Americans or Westerners only had one particular word that they could use to describe ice, whereas there are people who need various nuances to describe the different types of ice because it's important for their community and their survival. So the more words that we have, the more words one has in their vocabulary, then the better off they're going to be when it comes to picking a word from that inventory, from that warehouse, to describe it to themselves and to describe it to others. So the call to action from Anthony Robbins is to invest in your vocabulary. Spend some time reading, because he did mention that the Bible, works of Shakespeare, have a richness of vocabulary in them. I think the Bible has 6,000 or 7,000 different words, as does Shakespeare's works. And by reading those books, by indulging in those texts, you can get an opportunity to broaden and enrich your vocabulary. Here we are with a few more sculptures down here. I'll just walk around and continue talking. I can see the old clothes hoist over there in the distance with the clothes. Brings back wonderful memories. So once again, what are we talking about? Anthony Robbins calls it transformational vocabulary, because the words we choose to use become our experience, and we need to be careful with the words that we choose, because we want to make sure that the experience that we're describing or we're having is the best one possible, and we don't want to ruin the experience by using the wrong words. He also went on to say that when it comes to emotions, there's a number of words in the English language to describe emotion, but 80% of those words are negative words. 80% of those words have a negative connotation, which means that we spend more time trying to describe negative emotions to what we do when it comes to positive emotions. And it's a selection, it's a free will. You can choose the words you use to describe your world. It's up to you. It makes more sense to be a detective of positive transformational words to help reinforce the good things that is happening in your life, and to leverage those opportunities. Yeah, we're coming up to the cliff face here. Some more sculptures by the sea here at Bondi. Oh, there we go. We've got the sun just starting to come up there. And as I mentioned before, it's not going to be a brilliant sunrise this morning because there is some cloud cover on the horizon. So once again, getting back to this topic of language, what we should be encouraging wherever possible is to get our children to read as much as they can, because reading enables them to live another person's experiences. Books are wonderful, because when somebody has to write a book, they need to go into deep thought, and deep thought takes someone somewhere else. It takes them to a place closer to their soul. I like this. Wow. So once again, the words that we use need to be accurate. They need to accurately express what we're seeing, what we're thinking, what we're feeling. And our feelings will also influence the words that we have, knowing very well that the words are our experience, and it works both ways. Your thought creates emotion, and your emotion creates your thoughts. It's a feedback loop. So what you don't want to do is you don't want to be caught up in a trap of negativity, using the wrong words, having the wrong feelings, and then being the ripple effect where you pass it on to other people. Because at the end of the day, we are the message. We are messengers, we are emissaries. And what we think, what we do, other people are watching and observing as well. So what you don't want is to be a negative emissary. As my friend Andrew Smyrna said, you don't want to be a bearer of bad news that other people pass on and share the bad news. The best thing in life is to be the bearer of good news, to be somebody who's going to be a beacon of hope, as opposed to somebody who's going to fuel negativity, sadness and unhappiness. So what did we learn from this episode of transformational language? The key point for me is that we need to be able to choose the words that we use and to choose them wisely, so that we turn an 8 into a 9. By using the right words, we can change the experience. This is very, very important. You can change the experience that you're having by describing things more accurately, and you've got poetic license as well. You know, reality is your interpretation. Now, what is going on in the world is your interpretation, and everybody has a different slither of reality, and all those slithers of reality, when we put them together, create our worldview, and that worldview becomes the lens in which we judge and see other things in the world. So we need to be wise in terms of how we use our language and what we think about and what we do, because at the end of the day, we are the captain coaches, we are the architects, we are the conductors of our lives, and it would make sense to do things in a way that is going to enhance, that is going to colour our experience so that it is the best possible experience that we could have. It would be a shame going through life and not having lived life to the best of your ability, to not have seen things as they really are, but to see things as other people describe them. Now, you have your view, you have your opinion, you have the ability to describe things in a way that is empowering. You don't have to take the media's view, you don't have to take your parents' view, you don't have to take your cultural view. You can take the view that is best for you, the one that serves you, the one that gives you peace, the one that allows you to add to previous views that you've been able to endorse and to support. Because at the end of the day, life is a learning exercise where we go step by step, and learning is simply the art of attaching the unknown to the known. And the more that you know, the more you're capable of learning, the more you're capable of knowing, and not just to take things that have been handed to you, but to think about it in a way using your own rationality, your own experience, your past, but also to look at things with love, to look at things and ask yourself, how is this going to serve me? How's it going to help me? How's it going to allow me to serve God with all my heart, mind and soul? And how can I use this to love myself and to learn to love others as I love myself? Once again, life for all of us is a journey where we're learning, and we're learning not because things are new, we're learning because things have always been there, but it's new to us. As Tony Robbins says, nothing in the world is new, it's just new to you because you've just come across it. So another call to action that Anthony Robbins invites people to do is just to say yes. Say yes to life, embrace life, turn your sixes into sevens, your sevens into nines, and just continue to do things that are going to give you the best possible experience, the best return on your investment, your limited investment in this world, and to see things as positively as you can, and to look for love, to look for good things, to live with positive expectancy. Because where your focus goes, your energy flows. And it's important to be able to focus on things in a way that is going to empower you, not to disempower you. Anyway, let me go down the bottom here and just check things out, because it's a peaceful morning. There's no breeze, no distractions. We're here well before the crowds are here. It's going to be chock-a-block today, given that it's the opening weekend of Sculptures by the Sea. And let's try and get as much done as possible so I can head on home and continue my day. Unfortunately, on the way in this morning, I decided to come along Victoria Road just to save some tolls and some money, but I got pinged by a speed camera going along Victoria Road there, so whilst I was trying to save some money, I ended up losing more money and some points, because I could have gone along the M2, which has a higher speed limit. It's a direct road, but that's how life is. We make decisions and things just happen. But at the end of the day, the important message for me when I communicate this to myself is that I shouldn't have been speeding. I was just thinking about what I was going to do today and a little bit absent-minded. So we need to check in on ourselves, check in on our language, and to understand that the people that we spend most time with, we end up inheriting and taking in the language, the habitual language that they use. So we need to be smarter, we need to be discerning, and we need to try and manage as best we can the opportunities so that we don't get caught up in other people's poor language skills. And I think the important thing to also understand is what separates people is their level of education. It's not necessarily just their level of education, because with education comes a depth and a richness of vocabulary. The more educated a person is, the greater their vocabulary is, and by having a strong vocabulary and a rich vocabulary, they are able to communicate to themselves and to others more effectively, and are able to talk about things more accurately as opposed to more generalized, because the language one uses is based on will enable them to express things more clearly. So it's better to have more words to express your feelings so that you can accurately express exactly what you're feeling, rather than just to have a few words that describe one's feelings. Let's just get a bit of an angle from here. I guess a lot of us feel like this person every now and then. Just want to chill out, sit back and just be by yourself. Here's a nice angle as well. So there you go. There you go. Man, boat, coastline, a penny for his thoughts. So thank you very much for joining me on this episode of all that I've learned from Anthony Robbins over the years. Well, we've had an opportunity to get a glimpse of this year's Sculptures by the Sea. This is a most beautiful walk, as you can see. It's a beautiful day, and I think it'll be going on for a couple of weeks, where we can come down here and enjoy it. My advice to people is to come down as early as possible. Do it first thing in the morning, before all the crowd gets down here. A, so you can find parking, and B, so you can do it when it's nice and cool and not too hot. And we will continue our journey of learning and sharing all of the wonderful teachings that have come from Anthony Robbins over the years. And as I've mentioned in previous vlogs, I was fortunate to have gone to UPW back in 94 and 95. I read both of his books, Awaken the Giant Within and Unlimited Power. Not only did I read them, I studied them intently. I did listen to all the tapes that Anthony Robbins put out in terms of Power Talk. And there may have been another tape series, but I forget it, where he interviewed people who were leaders in their field and tapped into their skills and allowed us to vicariously model their experience, their skill set, the half dozen things that they do well to make them leaders in their field. And today we just briefly touched on one of the key topics that Anthony Robbins talks about, which is manage your transformational vocabulary, because the words that you choose to use end up becoming the experience, not only for you, but for people around you. And to know that the media are constantly manipulating the words and manipulating the language and making things or colouring things in ways which may not necessarily be reality, but it becomes reality, it becomes truth, because once it's said, once it's written, for many people that is the truth, that is reality. So wishing you all the best. Until we chat again next time, live with passion and enjoy every moment in your life. Even though I feel a little bit down at the moment, I'll get over it, I'll get through it. I'll just learn to be a little bit more careful in future. Yassas, take care, and bye for now.